Well, when we ask what people know and what they can do, we typically look at people's degrees and formal qualifications, but they are only part of the story. And you can see that in Italy. You have many people with a university degree having difficulty finding a job, and at the very same time employers say they cannot find the people with the skills they need. And degrees and qualifications tell us what we learned in the past, but they're not necessarily a good reflection of what we can do right now. So with PIAAC we took a different approach. We tested the skills of people directly. We looked at what they know, what they can do with what they know. We looked at how they can solve problems in a technology-rich environment. But that's not the end of the story. We also looked at how they actually use their skills. Because when you think about success in life, it has to do with what you can do, but it's also to do with how well actually do you make use of your skills. How well are your skills matched to the demand? So that's the big innovation of PIAAC also to preceding assessments of literacy skills. If there's one thing we've learned from the economic crisis in Europe, it's that we cannot simply bail ourselves out of a crisis or stimulate our way out of a crisis or just print money our way out of a crisis. But we can do so much better to equip more people with better skills for better jobs, for better lives. And literacy and numeracy skills are really at the foundations of this. The capacity of people to access, manage, integrate information, to think critically, to think quantitatively, to see that our world is dominated by science, to think like a scientist. Those aspects are very, very important for the success of people. In a way, sort of in the past, learning was about, learning something, and teaching was about teaching something. Today's success is about people having a kind of compass and the navigation skills to find their own way through an increasingly volatile, complex, and ambiguous world. And literacy is that kind of navigation tool. It tells us, how to read the world, how to interpret the world. So those foundation skills are critically important. They are not everything for success. There's a lot more that we need to be successful in life. You can think about, other types of skills. You can think about character qualities like curiosity, courage, leadership, resilience. But clearly literacy skills are the foundation. And we can see also that the link between literacy skills and employment is very strong, between literacy skills and earnings. But it doesn't stop with money. PIAAC also shows that actually there's a very important relationship between the literacy skills of people and their trust in others or their trust in institutions, their political efficacy. People at the high end of the skill distribution see themselves as actors in societies. They can do things. People at the low end of the skill distribution see themselves as objects of political processes. They basically think, well, politicians decide everything, there's nothing I can do. The link between literacy and health. So it is really a very, very important foundation. Well, digitalization has changed the way in which we learn and in which we use our skills. The dilemma for educators today is that the kind of things that are easy to teach, maybe easy to test, are precisely the kind of things that are also easy to digitize, to automate, and outsource. The reproduction of subject matter content is no longer enough. It's not, can I reproduce what I learn, but can I extrapolate from what I know? Can I use and apply my knowledge in novel situations? So the digital world has fundamentally transformed the way in which we, analyze and also solve problems. That's why we put problem solving in a technology-rich environment very much at the center of the assessment. Think about reading or literacy. In the past, when you didn't know the answer to a question, you could go to an encyclopedia, you can look it up, and you can believe the answer to be true. Today, you go on Google and you find 27,000 answers to your question, and nobody tells you what's right, what's wrong, what's true, what's not true. That is the literacy in the digital age. It's a very, very different set of skills. So the environment in which we live, the technologies that we use, they've fundamentally changed what we learn and how we learn. There are a number of factors that are very, very important. The first is to improve our capacity to anticipate the evolution of skill demand, to look towards the future. What do we need to teach and learn today to be fit, to be prepared for tomorrow in a very rapidly changing environment? Second point is to be better to tell young people the truth. At the moment it's very, very hard for young people when they go to study and learn what's really the opportunities that I have in my future. And I think we can do much better to give people more reliable information about how what they learn and where they learn is linked to their future life prospects. Now, often we believe, university is the only road to success, but there are many kinds of educational pathways, and sort of being more honest to young people, telling them, giving them better information is very important. Third, what we have learned is countries that do well typically have been able to integrate the world of learning and the world of work. Now, what we see, for example, is that work-based learning at the workplace, can be a powerful way to actually work in a real environment, learn the kind of social and emotional skills that are important to success, work with real people in a real situation rather than just being taught in a classroom. So integrating the world of work, the world of learning, finding better ways how to use the skills of people. That's a big factor as well, that often there are many financial barriers, but also non-financial barriers that limit the capacity of people to use their skills really well, to move to the kind of job that uses their skills best. I give you an example. If you look to PIAAC in Japan, you will find the country with the best prepared population, the highest level of skills. But the labor market uses those skills very poorly because it's very segmented, very rigid, it's very hard to get in for people. Women are excluded from many occupations. So, people are well prepared, but the society isn't putting that to good use. You look to the United States, a country where we typically overestimate the skills of people. In fact, the Americans are not so highly skilled. At the very same time, the economy is very good to extract value from the skills, to use the skills of people. That's why many people from all over the world go to the United States to work. So both sides of the spectrum are really, really important. Well, PIAAC gives us a bird's eye view on how well nations prepare their citizens and also how well nations use the potential of their citizens in terms of the skills. With education and skills online, we can look at this from the other end of the spectrum. We give people a tool to assess their own skills, to assess their relative strengths and their weaknesses, to assess how they use the skills. And that's very important because often, it's very hard for individuals to find out, where are their relative strengths, where are their weaknesses. And so this is a tool where people can see and compare themselves with other individuals. For young people, literacy skills, numeracy skills will always be a very important foundation, but also the capacity to think across the boundaries of subject matter disciplines. Now, innovation today is no longer about you having a great idea and doing it, but it's about you being able to connect the dots, the ideas where the next innovation will come from. It's also important to think about social skills, emotional skills, the capacity to communicate, to collaborate with others. And last but not least, to invest in character qualities like resilience, when I've failed, to get up, to try again, in courage, in leadership, curiosity. Those kinds of qualities will be very, very important for people. Today we need to learn for the jobs that have not been created, not to educate people for a job, but to learn to create a job. Today we need to learn to use technologies that have not been invented and to solve social problems that have not been sort of created. So foundations are very, very important, but young people need to go beyond that and sometimes beyond what they get in formal education. It's a very big challenge these days for teachers because kind of things that used to be easy to teach, easy to test, the reproduction of subject matter content, have also become easy to digitize, to automate. So for teachers to focus more on creative skills, to put a greater emphasis, for example, on things like project-based learning, where teachers from different disciplines work together with students around, common problems to strengthen the depths, to improve the rigor of learning, to increase the cognitive demand, to make it really, really challenging for young people, because life is going to be challenging for young people, to focus, to teach fewer things at greater depths. Teaching in the past has always been very shallow. The curriculum used to be sort of a mile wide but only an inch deep, and to move away from this as a teacher, to have the courage to actually deepen the understanding, the conceptual understanding of students. So what this means for teachers is to assume a higher degree of professional autonomy, but also to engage more in a collaborative culture, not to believe, it's only my principal or the government telling me what to do, but to work with my colleagues, to learn with my colleagues. If we look to the best performing education systems, teachers watch each other's lessons, they prepare the lessons together. Teaching has become a much more challenging profession. Teachers are expected to prepare students for an unknown future. to have a high level of cognitive demand, to prepare students to solve very challenging situations, to focus, to teach fewer things in greater depth. The current instructional system is often, a mile wide and inch deep because governments are putting more and more demands on schooling system. The challenge for teachers is to find out what is it that really we can focus on and to give students the foundations, the conceptual understanding that underlie the disciplines. And all of this requires also a different culture in school, a much higher level of professional autonomy on the part of teachers, but also much more collaborative culture where teachers work together to frame good practice, where they work with their colleagues, where they observe the lessons from each other, prepare the lessons together, evaluate the lessons. So this collaborative culture is a very, very important sign of high-performing teaching system. And ultimately, it's about making teaching as a profession more attractive. Not necessarily just financially more attractive, but intellectually more attractive. The first thing that employers can do is to use the skills of their employees in the most productive ways, to give people the kind of tasks that actually make them blossom and develop their own competences. But it's also desirable that employers invest in the development of the skills of their employees. And with that I mean not just providing them with short-term training to fill narrow skill gaps, but to invest in the development of generic skills, foundation skills that will help people evolve. And where employers do that, we typically have a much stronger culture and a stronger bond between employees and employers. Investing in high-quality apprenticeship, high-quality work-based learning. There are many opportunities employers have to invest in people and ultimately invest in their own productivity. Using the skills of people effectively has a lot to do with how we manage people, how we give people opportunities to use their skills, to develop, to give them encouragement, to give them the kind of careers that reflect and respect their actual skills. There's a lot that employers can do. A, to invest in people's skills, but B, also to make sure that people really have the opportunities to use what they know in the most effective ways. Teaching has become a much more challenging profession. Teachers are expected to prepare students for an unknown future, to have a high level of cognitive demand, to prepare students to solve very challenging situations, to focus, to teach fewer things in greater depth. The current instructional system is often, a mile wide and inch deep because governments are putting more and more demands on schooling system. The challenge for teachers is to find out what is it that really we can focus on and to give students the foundations, the conceptual understanding that underlie the disciplines. And all of this requires also a different culture in school, a much higher level of professional autonomy on the part of teachers, but also much more collaborative culture where teachers work together to frame good practice, where they work with their colleagues, where they observe the lessons from each other, prepare the lessons together, evaluate the lessons. So this collaborative culture is a very, very important sign of high-performing teaching system. And ultimately, it's about making teaching as a profession more attractive. Not necessarily just financially more attractive, but intellectually more attractive.